Bonjour à tout le monde et bienvenue dans la salle de presse de la Commission européenne pour notre Midday Briefing. Merci également de nous suivre en ligne sur Europe by Satellite en direct. Aujourd'hui, nous sommes le jeudi 7 septembre. Comme vous l'avez déjà vu ce matin, la Commission et le Royaume-Uni sont parvenus aujourd'hui à un accord politique sur la participation du Royaume-Uni au programme Horizon Europe et Copernicus, après des mois de discussions approfondies. Nous nous en réjouissons bien évidemment et je voudrais maintenant appeler Dan sur le podium pour vous donner des détails sur cet accord.
Thanks very much, Dana. So indeed, earlier this morning, the Commission and the United Kingdom reached a political agreement on the UK's participation in Horizon Europe, which is the EU's research and innovation programme, and Copernicus, the EU's world-leading Earth observation programme. Today's agreement will allow the EU and the UK to now deepen their relationship in research, innovation and space, bringing together research and space communities. Now, of course, today's agreement remains fully in line with the EU-UK Trade and Cooperation Agreement. The UK will be required to contribute financially to the EU budget and is subject to all the safeguards of the TCA. You'd have seen in Press Corner we published a press release, a Q&A memo and a joint statement by the Commission and the UK Government. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. That was all for our announcements today, so I can now open the floor for any questions that you may have. Go ahead, please.
Mojca from the Slovene Public Radio and Television. My question is on the assistance for Slovenia after the devastating floods in August from the cohesion funds. I wanted to know what are the procedures to redirect the money from the existing project to this reconstruction project. Can these procedures be fast-tracked? And also how flexible the Commission can be in this redirecting the money from existing to new projects under the cohesion funds. Thank you.
Much.
Thank you very much for this question. Following indeed these terrible events, you know that the Commission has reacted immediately, for instance, already through the civil protection mechanism, through which the EU mobilized quite substantial and immediate assistance to Slovenia. But your question is more about the looking beyond the immediate and emergency response. And there you know that President von der Leyen announced immediately both short-term and medium to long-term support measures for Slovenia under the EU Solidarity Fund, the Recovery and Resilience Facility and cohesion funds. A task force was also established to work indeed to develop mechanisms and approaches to provide indeed these short-term and medium to long-term support under the different funds that I have referred to. The participants in the task force continue to work very closely together to see indeed what could be done. When I look now at the cohesion policy funds angle, you know that managing climate, the first thing to stress is that cohesion policy is a long-term policy which lays down funding support for a programming period of 7 years, from 2021 to 2027. And managing climate change adaptation and risk prevention is a priority, both in the previous programming period and in the current one. More than €92 million funds were committed to flood protection measures in the 2014 and 2020 operational program, and more than 109 million euros from the European Regional Development Fund are already allocated to investments to reduce the risks of floods in 2021, 2027. We are now, as I said, also in the context of the task force, in contact with the managing authorities to discuss possible reprogramming options for the 21-27 program and for the 2014-2020 program with regard to remaining available funds. But for now, the discussions are ongoing together with the Member States. This is very much a joint process where Member States and Commission work together. I'm not in a position now to give you very concrete deadlines as to what will happen, how and when. This is taken extremely seriously by the Commission. Important steps have been taken from the beginning, and we are very strongly committed to continue doing so together with the colleagues from Slovenia. And it's under this, I would say, this spirit that work with the Slovene authorities is ongoing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions for Stefan on this matter or on assistance from cohesion policy? No, I don't see that, so thank you very much, Stefan. And we can open now the floor for other questions. Yes, go ahead, there behind.
I'm Ida Brands from the Dutch broadcaster NOS. I have a few questions regarding the farmers' fraud. Yesterday, news broke that our Ministry of Agriculture had lied to the Commission about the scale of this fraud. First of all, I would like a reaction on this. Has the Commission already got in touch with the Dutch Ministry? If so, what has been said? The Ministry of Agriculture already responded and they didn't explicitly say they didn't lie. So what does this mean for the relationship with the Commission? What will happen now? And do you have any examples of other cases where countries lied to the Commission on the scale of fraud? And are there any procedures?
So much for this. That would be a question pertaining to agriculture. So Miriam is there.
Yes, thank you very much. Let me first underline that the Common Agriculture Policy is managed under shared management between the European Commission and the Member States, where the Member States are required to protect the European Union financial interest. In addition, under the EU treaties, the Member States is expected to adhere to the principle of royal cooperation. So we have in place a system of audits in the Commission to verify the proper functioning of the control systems put in place by the Member State, by each Member State in the European Union. This follows, of course, the EU rules as according to our regulations. In this specific case, of course, we cannot comment on the details. What we are doing is that we are in touch with the relevant Dutch authorities to really get further information on this particular case.
Thank you. Follow up, please.
Could you give us an example of, in general, what could happen if you discover there has been made any mistakes on the side of the Dutch Ministry of Agriculture? What could happen? What are the possible penalties?
Again, here we would be speculating because we don't know well the case, so I cannot really provide further details. We will need to see on a case-by-case basis what could happen.
Thank you. We need to establish the facts first, and then we will see what the next steps would be appropriate. Any other questions on agriculture matters for Miriam? Yes, David, go ahead.
Miriam, sorry, is on Ukrainian grains again. Sorry for that. So we're getting close to the 15th of September. Yesterday, I think, Dombrovskis mentioned that it's the competence of the Commission, but he also mentioned the platform and the consensus. I mean, does that mean there needs to be a consensus before the Commission makes an update or decides on the emergency regulation and the continuation till the end of the year? Thanks.
Basically, what the EVP Dombrovskis was saying is that we need to find a consensual solution. So we need to find a solution that is satisfactory for all sides. On one side, we have Ukraine, where we need to continue supporting in this very challenging situation that they are confronting with the aggression from Russia. And we need to make sure that we can get the grain out of Ukraine. At the same time, we are experiencing some logistical bottlenecks and difficulties in the 5 neighboring countries, and that's why we set in place in May, following an agreement by the President von der Leyen with President Zelensky, the coordination platform, which has met very intensively and continues to do the work. And then, of course, there are the other countries within the European Union that are also involved. So basically, we need to find the best solution possible to make sure that we can, on one side, continue supporting Ukraine, and then, on the other side, making sure that these disruptions are not there anymore. As regards the decision-making process, as you know, this is under the ATM regulation, so the regulation that suspends all duties on imports coming from Ukraine. In this regulation, we have a provision whereby exceptionally, under exceptional circumstances, we can adopt certain measures. These were the preventive measures that are in place since May and that they were extended in June until the 15th of September. And this is something where the Commission would decide very quickly because these are of exceptional nature, so we need to put them in place after informing the Member States.
Thank you. Follow up?
And then I think it was it Monday or Tuesday, the Agriculture Commissioner in the committee mentioned 30 euros per tonne as logistics aid, some scheme to help Ukraine get that grain, get those products out of the EU. Has there been any update on that? Is it a formal proposal now? And how would that be decided?
No decision has been taken. What we are doing in the framework of the coordination platform, as I said, that met for the last time last Tuesday, there are discussions on the different options on the table to improve the transport of the grain, to get it out of Ukraine. But again, no particular decision has been taken on this topic. This is still under discussion, and different options and possibilities are being addressed and discussed.
Thank you. David?
Thank you. I'm wondering if the prolongation of the temporary measure are part of the consensual solution, because a majority of member states, and they have stated it quite clearly yesterday in Coreper, are against the renewal of these temporary measures. So, and five member states, or four, especially Poland and Hungary, on the other side are saying the opposite. So how can you find on this issue a consensual solution? Thank you.
That's why the work of the platform is very important, and actually at the last meeting that took place on Tuesday, we also invited other EU countries. It was not just the 5 member states, plus Ukraine, Moldova, and the European Commission. We also invited the Baltic states and Croatia because they are offering alternative routes. And we don't exclude that for future discussions we can also engage with other member states. At technical level, we are also discussing with all member states how to make sure that we can find the most adequate solution. So we really hope we manage to find something that satisfies all sides.
Follow up, David?
Yes, thank you. I'm a little bit confused because I'm hearing the Agriculture Commissioner saying that basically the problem is the price of Ukrainian products in Poland, for example, and in the 5 countries. And on the other side, I'm hearing you saying the problem are the bottlenecks. And the temporary measures are in place for the 5 countries, and Ukraine is threatening to bring you to the WTO. So basically, who is right? What's the real problem? Because you will not solve the issue of prices in Poland, Hungary, and so on just with the platform. That's what Wojciechowski said repeatedly. I cannot understand how you can find a solution that satisfies the government in Poland if you don't prolong the temporary measures, because their problem is quite political. There are elections. There are rural communities which are asking money, basically, and they are saying we are in a difficult situation, and they are trying to answer them.
Well, I think that it's very clear that, first of all, the problem is Russia's war against Ukraine. it is Putin that invaded Ukraine. It is Putin and his army that are bombarding or striking with missiles warehouses where grain is being stored there. It is Putin that refused to renew the Black Sea deal, which was a route for export towards the rest of the world of Ukrainian grain. And it is that which is the origin of the problem, and that will continue being the problem as long as the Black Sea route is closed and as long as Putin continues doing what he's doing. Then, on the more technical level, there are indeed bottlenecks and there are issues with transporting, with getting out the grain out of Ukraine, be it logistic, being procedures. It is about handling and absorbing a large quantity of grain, larger than was initially expected, because, as I said, the Black Sea route is being closed. Of course, Miriam can tell you more about the type of difficulties that are being encountered, or about the situation on the agricultural markets of those countries which have led in the first place to this initial and temporary restriction measures. But let us be very clear about what the problem is and why we are having this situation, which is indeed a complex one. Which has our whole attention. We're focused on finding a solution. We have another 8 days until we need to come to a conclusion. We are analyzing the options that we have, and we are committed to find a satisfactory solution to this. David.
Dana, thank you for repeating the line that Eric gave us a couple of months ago, but I don't think that it's wise to say that it's all Putin's fault, because I could reply that the Polish government told Polish agricultors that they should not sell their grain because the price would have gone up. The problem is that so they told their people, let's speculate on grain. And then the opposite happened. The price went down. So it's not all Putin's fault. Apologies. And you are, let's say, playing with the EU rules and WTO rules because there is a government in a difficult position. So, again, how can you find a solution that satisfies Poland, respecting, abiding to what you said in June, that the temporary measure will be phased out on the 15th of September?
Thank you, David. I do understand your question very well. The point is we have another 8 days, and we have been telling you that we are working on a solution that we hope will satisfy everybody. So this is the state of play. I cannot give you today the solution, nor can Miriam, nor will anyone else. The problem is complex, has many facets, and we are working towards finding a solution that pleases, reassures, and satisfies the many parties to the situation. That's all we can say today. Any other questions about this topic? I don't see that, though Eleonora has her hand up, so no longer. She took her hand down. Any other questions for Miriam on her portfolios? That's not the case. Thank you, Miriam. Any other questions for us today? Irini, go ahead.
Thank you, Dana. It's on floods in Greece. We have deadly floods that strike Greece during 24, 48 hours. And I would like to have more details on EU assistance, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Irini. And here's Balázs.
Indeed, good afternoon. We are going, unfortunately, from one natural disaster to the other in Greece. So this time it's not forest fires, but floods that we follow very closely. So in this context, we received an activation request for the Copernicus satellite system from Greece. This happened 2 days ago, and of course we are providing some satellite images in order to allow the authorities to delineate the area affected by the floods. And I'm talking about here the region of Thessaly. And just to add, we have a similar request from Bulgaria, a country which is also suffering from floods. So in this context as well, we have been providing satellite images, notably concerning the area of Burgas. That's it for now, but of course, should there be further need for assistance, including via the EU Civil Protection Mechanism, we will do our utmost to provide the assistance needed on the ground.
Thank you very much. Balázs, any more questions for Balázs on this? Yes, please go ahead.
Merci Dana. Desislava Mincheva pour la télévision bulgare BTV. À ma connaissance, Balázs, la Bulgarie n'a toujours pas activé le mécanisme. Pourrais-tu le confirmer? Est-ce que tu pourras nous rappeler quel est le temps nécessaire après une demande d'un pays pour activer le mécanisme? Et à la fin, pourrais-tu nous rappeler, s'il te plaît, comment a fonctionné le mécanisme la dernière fois quand il a été activé pour des inondations? Merci.
Oui, donc effectivement, je peux confirmer que pour l'instant, la Bulgarie n'a pas activé le mécanisme de protection civile. Ce qu'on a reçu de la part des autorités bulgares, c'est une activation du système Copernicus satellitaire. Et dans ce contexte-là, on fournit quelques images satellitaires aux autorités bulgares. Comment est-ce que ça fonctionne? Donc, une fois on a une demande, à travers notre centre de crise ici à la Commission, on contacte tous les États membres de l'Union européenne pour voir qui est en mesure de fournir l'assistance qui est demandée par l'État membre ou par le pays concerné. Donc ça marche comme ça de façon générale. En termes de timeline, c'est difficile de préciser exactement comment ça se passerait parce qu'on est dans un scénario hypothétique. Mais ce qu'on essaye de faire de notre part, c'est de vraiment mobiliser de l'assistance dès que possible. Ça peut venir dans quelques heures. De façon générale, on est capable de mobiliser du soutien quasiment immédiatement. Donc, évidemment, si les autorités bulgares nous transmettent une telle demande, on va faire de notre mieux de réagir aussi rapidement que possible.
Merci Balázs. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions sur Balázs, sur son portefeuille qui, malheureusement, a été mis en avant par la nature cet été? Mose, go ahead.
Not a question about emergency aid, but more related to the previous question asked by David on the grain from Ukraine. I'm just wondering, after all, I mean, the agriculture commissioner, he's from Poland, and indeed, he talked a lot about, let's say, prices and supply and demand and so on, and how it affects the markets. And of course, I suppose very difficult for him to, let's say, disregard the interest of his own country, Poland. So my question is, I mean, is there a risk of situation where a commissioner can find himself in a conflict of interest and where he should excuse himself from dealing with a certain case, file or topic? What are the rules for that? Thank you.
Thank you so much. So basically, you have a question regarding the code of conduct, or basically involvement of links between or interferences between countries on portfolios. I'm bound to remind you, Mose, that commissioners represent the European interest. This is part of the treaties, is part of their creed, is part of their work, it's part of their conduct, it's part of their mission letter, and it's part of who we are at the European Commission. And almost every commissioner deals with situations involving his or her country of origin in one form or another at various points of their mandates, and they're bound to follow the same rules, the same principles, and the same code of conduct as all other commissioners with regards to conflicts of interest. Conflicts of interest refer to personal matters, not to the country of origin of a certain commissioner, because obviously each and every one of them comes from one of the EU member states, and each and every of our decisions refers to our member states. So this is all what I can say by way of a general remark to your question. Any other questions that you may have for Balázs? I see two hands up. One of them is Eleonora, so let's see if it's for Balázs. Go ahead.
Sorry, it's not for Balázs, it's about migration and Frontex, so I can wait.
Yes, please do so. I'm checking if Katie's question is about this issue, so yes, let's get Kathy on the line?
Please.
Katie, is your question for Balázs? I think that's the answer. Thank you, Balázs. I presume not. So, thank you, Balázs. And, oh, sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Andreas Reich, Swiss TV, thank you. It's a question on Switzerland, but on Horizon Europe, so I'm not sure if it's for Balázs. Okay. When will Switzerland be allowed to fully participate in the Horizon Europe program again, and what are the conditions from the EU side for this?
Yeah, I think our position is pretty well known on this one. The conditions are also pretty clear. So we have a certain number of structural priorities that we are pursuing with regard to Switzerland, which have been discussed in the context of a large number of exploratory talks in the past couple of months. And we've been very clear that the Horizon dimension will depend on the progress made on the structural issues. So what needs to happen now is to accelerate the work, to continue the work on these key issues, and then in light of that, the Horizon dimension can be considered.
Thank you. Follow up?
So if I understand correctly, as long as the exploratory talks are going on, it is not possible that Switzerland joins Horizon Europe again.
Well, I think the talks will be ongoing until there's a sufficient and mutually shared understanding on how the key priorities should be tackled. And once that's done, once sufficient progress has been made in that context, then we can look at the Horizon issue as well.
Thank you. Any other questions for Balázs? This time not, so thank you so much. And I can open now the floor to other type of questions. Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, Ksenia Polska, Deutsche Welle. My question is on foreign affairs. It is about the situation in Belarus, where Alexander Lukashenko issued a decree according to which, if I'm not mistaken, starting from today, all the citizens of Belarus living abroad, particularly in the European Union, will not be able to renew their passports or other important documents. So what is the stance of the European Commission towards this problem, and is there any technical solution maybe that can be offered to the people who will at some point become people without citizenship? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ksenia. First of all, on this decree signed by the illegitimate President Lukashenko, I can only say that this is regrettably the last in a series of steps and actions taken by this illegitimate regime against Belarusians who had to flee abroad the repression and persecution they were facing in Belarus. So this is obviously an attempt to force them to come back in order to most likely face repressions and reprisals from Lukashenko regime. And this once again shows the total disrespect by this regime towards the citizens' fundamental rights. And of course, the European Union strongly condemns this decree and this practice, this decision, and we will continue to stand by the Belarusian people in their quest for democracy. On the second part of your question, I understand the entry into force of this decree is today, so we will need to see then what practical implication it brings for people, for Belarusian citizens who are in the territory of our member states.
Thank you. Any other questions on foreign affairs for Peter? Mose, go ahead.
Yes, it's related to this question about citizens from Belarus residing in the EU. And does this mean, let's say, those citizens from Belarus who cannot return, let's say, to Belarus to renew, extend their passports, would that mean, let's say, that it could be considered as asylum seekers because they're afraid of returning back and be persecuted in Belarus? And would that mean that theoretically they would have right to apply for asylum in the EU country? Thank you.
you so much. This would be more a question for Anita, of course, in relation to asylum procedures, but just wait for a second, Anita. I want to clarify if there are any questions which are foreign affairs proper, so for Peter before calling you on the floor, because I know that we'll have other questions from Eleonora as well. So your turn will come. In the meantime, I will want to check with Katie if her question is for Peter. Let's see that.
Me.
Katie.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm speaking now. You can hear me, great, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to ask about Horizon and whether or not this new agreement indicates an improvement in relationships between the EU and the UK. Thank you.
Thank you for this, Katie. I will call down on the stage for this, but I will first need to continue to see if there are any questions on foreign affairs for Peter, because we try to group the questions thematically. And I believe we do have one. I don't insist, but it's only if you have a question for Peter. And I believe, yes, that Rola has one. So go ahead.
Yes, I hope that you can hear me well. I would like to ask about the latest actions of the European Commission about releasing the Swedish diplomat of the European Commission, which is more than 500 days is in prison of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Thank you.
Thank you, Rola. On this, High Representative was speaking last time on Tuesday morning, so I would refer you to check what he said, because we will not go beyond what he said. I can do a very short recap for you. We are dedicating all our efforts at all levels in all our encounters with Iranian partners to achieve the release of our colleague.
Thank you, Peter. Yes, I think that concludes the list of questions for you today. So I will now call Anita on the stage to provide an answer to the questions pertaining to asylum and to Frontex.
Thank you, Mose. On this, I can only reiterate that we are following the developments very closely. As you're well aware, the member states are in charge of assessing each and every asylum claim individually, and they also have the responsibility for this. But on a general note, with or without the passport, a Belarus citizen may request and put forward an asylum claim.
Thank you, Anita. I will now give the floor to Eleonora, who's been waiting for a long time, and she has a question for you.
Thank you very much, Dana. I have a question on Frontex and migration, which is not, of course, I don't ask any comment for the court decision of yesterday, because it's not, of course, appropriate. But what I would like to ask to the Commission is to who Frontex, the EU agency, is accountable. And my second question is, which is not very clear to me, if Frontex witnesses an illegal act by a member state, and what? My question is, what are the procedures? You know, when, for example, the Commission have the evidence provided by Frontex about these illegal acts, because. As long as, of course, the agency could provide this answer, I think at the end of the day, the agency is an agency, it's not an institution, and it should be accountable to the Commission. But I would like to clarify, have a clarification from you on this point. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Eleonora. First of all, I will start with the first question on Frontex, which is governed by the Management Board, which is in charge with officially controlling the functions of the agency. Let me remind you, we had also this in the past, but the composition is the head of the board of authorities of all the 27 EU member states, and plus 2 members of the European Commission on top. So this is on this, and also the management board is responsible for taking strategic decision of the agency and also to ensure its oversight. Now, in terms of accountability, this is also stated in the regulation that the agency is also accountable to both the Parliament and the Council. Now, I would transition to your second part on the governance structure, where Frontex has come a long way in terms of setting up a proper governance structure. And here I'm referring to the fundamental rights monitors, where there are 46 monitors in place that need to check that the respect for fundamental rights takes place. We have also several changes. We have a new leadership with a new executive director, Mr. Lytons, in place.
Thank you, Anita. Any questions for Anita? David?
Yes, thank you. It's a question on the report published by the European Agency for Asylum at the beginning of this week. And they said that from the beginning of the year, there have been more than 500,000 asylum requests in the EU+. And I'm wondering where these people come from. Because according to Frontex data, just 100,000 people entered in a regular way in the EU. So if you can explain me, or trying to clarify for me, this discrepancy. Thank you.
Thank you, David. As you would see, I don't have the exact page number in my head, but there is a clear section with the key nationalities asking asylum. And if you were to look on the left-hand side of the section, you would see the Syrians and Afghans being one of the top nationalities on this, Syrians being with 95% also recognition rate. Then you would have the second section on top, where you would have nationals also from Venezuela, Colombia, but also from Turkey on this, but also nationals from Russia and Iran.
Thank you. David? Basically, where they came from.
Yeah, where they came from. How?
It's
by plane, by bus, by car. So I mean, all the approach that you have presented in your holistic way to control the border of the EU is toward the south, mainly toward the south. So I'm wondering, where is the problem? Where they come from, all these people? If they don't come from Tunisia and Libya and Turkey, where your focus was in the last 7-8 years, maybe you are missing something.
So not where in terms of country of origin, which was a very legitimate reading of his question by Anita, but the other where, meaning which way are they coming in? So
I fully understand you, David, but I also beg to differ, because the focus, and I understand now where what your question is about, and I will go straight to this point by saying that indeed we have seen three main routes that were taken by Syrians, by Afghans, and other migrants that were put forward, but not only on the Central Mediterranean route, as you rightly allude to, but also Western Balkans route and also Eastern Mediterranean route. But also on our side, on this, we are focusing on all the three routes. That's why we have put also forward action plans, not only on the Central Mediterranean route, but also on the Western Balkan route, and also it is foreseen one for the Eastern Mediterranean route. But indeed, they were coming through all these sorts.
Thank you. Any other questions for Anita? I don't see any, so thank you. Any other questions on other topics for us today? Yes, please go ahead. Oh, I'm really sorry. I first go to Katie's question about the UK because she already asked it, and now she will get the answer from Dan.
Hi, Kathy. I mean, there's no doubt that this is a good deal. It's positive news. It is good for the EU. It's good for the UK. It, as I said, will allow us to deepen our relationship in science, in research, in innovation, in space. It's positive news for scientists, researchers, universities. As the President said this morning, the EU and the UK are key strategic partners and allies, and today's agreement proves that point. We'll continue to be at the forefront of global science and research. So yes, in short, this is a positive deal.
Thank you. Any other questions for Dan on the new agreement? Yes, Katie, go ahead. You have a follow-up.
Thanks. Yeah. Just to ask, you know, we do have a situation now where the UK is claiming that this is a bespoke deal, specially negotiated for the UK, and it's saying that it has a clawback mechanism, it's agreed, whereby it gets back, it's guaranteed to get back all the money that it puts in. So is that significantly different from other countries that are members of Horizon? And if not, is this what the kind of, you know, future of the UK relationship is about, where the UK claims one thing and the EU claims another about whatever's been agreed? And is that a concern?
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Look, I think, first and foremost, the association of the UK, the principle of associating the UK to union programmes is something that was discussed, it was negotiated back in 2020 during the negotiations on the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. So that was already provided for. What we are doing today is now making that operational. And as I said, our agreement is in line with the Trade and Cooperation Agreement and the various safeguards that are in that. Now, of course, like with any association agreement with Horizon, there is an ability to correct your contribution. And as you'll see as well in our press material, we explain how that works if the UK pays more than it gets and vice versa.
Okay, thank you. I think this time we finished with the subject, so thank you, Dan. And I can now give the floor to our colleague at the back.
David Bidueiro, Spanish Public Radio. I have a question about Saudi Arabia's company STC purchase of almost 10% stake of Telefónica to become the largest shareholder of that Spanish telecom. I would like to know if the Commission has a say on this decision, which the Spanish government is going to scrutinize, and if not, if Commission is worried about it, about the idea of a group like STC with its links with the government of Saudi Arabia could have a strong position on a strategic infrastructure in Europe. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Miriam?
Yes, let me first of all underline that the European Commission is not in a position to comment on individual transactions of this nature. This for confidentiality reasons, as you will understand. What I can say is that we have in place a foreign direct investment screening mechanism since 2020, which is aimed to identify and address possible risk to security or public order in the EU. So when there is a transaction and a foreign investment of a particular company within the European Union that could cause this risk to security or public order, the country concerned can do an FDI screening mechanism and can also consult the European Commission on this particular case. Again, I'm referring in general, not to concrete cases. And then we decide on a case-by-case basis, on the basis of the risk, whether we need to implement mitigating measures or whether this investment should be prohibited. But again, this is something that happens on very concrete cases under this framework regulation, and I'm not referring specifically to this transaction.
Okay, thank you, Miriam. Any other questions about this or about foreign direct investment screening? I don't see that, so thank you, Miriam. I believe we have one more question from the colleague at the back.
Hi, Olga Klakwa, German Television TV. The heads of the German regions, the so-called Länder, are asking the Commission for new electricity subsidies for energy-intensive industries. Could you elaborate a little bit on the legal framework? Is this possible? How could they look like? Are you in favor, or is the Commission against that? Thanks.
Thank you very much. And here is Dan replacing Ariana to provide an answer.
Hi, thank you very much for that question. I do indeed have some information for you on the legal framework, so bear with me as I'm replacing Ariana. I'll read it out, but I'll read it out slowly. So the Commission fully stands by the objective of preserving the competitiveness and productivity of the EU's industrial sector while preserving a level playing field in the single market. For instance, in August this year, the Commission approved under EU state aid rules a €6.5 billion German scheme to partially compensate energy-intensive industries for the costs of extending emissions trading in Germany. In December last year, so 2022, the Commission approved under the State Aid and Temporary Crisis Framework a €49 billion German scheme to support the economy in the context of Russia's war against Ukraine, part of the German electricity, gas and heat price break, the so-called, and I will not read out the German version of that, until the end of 2023, including the energy-intensive sectors. I have a few more details if you'd like them. I'm seeing you nod, so I will go ahead. In August, again, 2022, the Commission approved under EU state aid rules a €27.5 billion German scheme to partially compensate energy-intensive companies for higher electricity prices resulting from indirect emissions costs under the EU emission trading system. So there you go, you have a bit of an overview, but now to the crux of your question. We cannot comment on the German plans to introduce an industrial electricity price. The Commission understands that these plans are currently still being discussed at national level. And let me say a final few words on the general framework. So in general, aid measures in favour of industrial companies must comply with EU sectoral and state aid rules. If Member States decide to grant state aid to a specific company or sector, it is for them to design measures in line with state aid rules and the Member States' policy objectives. It is also for the Member States to assess whether a measure involves state aid that needs to be notified and approved by the Commission in advance of any granting of aid to beneficiaries unless covered by block exemptions. I'm almost finished. Certain measures, such as reductions in energy taxation that respect EU minimum taxation levels, benefit from block exemption to the extent they involve state aid and are deemed compatible with EU law without the need to be notified to the Commission. So, as always, the Commission stands ready to discuss with Member States on the compatibility of measures with EU rules. So there you have it. A bit on the framework, a bit on what the Commission has been doing. No specific comment for us on this particular moment, but as I said, the Commission stands ready to discuss with Member States the compatibility of measures with EU rules.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for Dan on this? Go ahead.
Yeah, Laura from Politico. I have a question about the comment of Olivia Vaheli yesterday, who backed Charles Michel timeline for letting EU candidate states join. Have these comments on enlargement changed the stance for the Commission?
Thank you very much for your question. I think we freed Dan first of all, and Anna will join us on the stage. So with regards to the Commission's position on this question, which we discussed, I believe, 2 weeks ago, our position is indeed that enlargement is a merit-based process and that candidate countries join when they're ready to join the European Union. And we as Commission focus on our important task of supporting candidate countries to prepare, to proceed, to make progress, whether in negotiations or to prepare for opening negotiations and for implementing the EU acquis in general. So this is the general position of the Commission, which we have already provided you with. And now, with respect to Commissioner Vaheli, I think Anna has a complement of information.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Dana has explained very well, the line of the Commission. Indeed, as we've always said, I mean, enlargement is a merit-based process. There are very clear conditions and criteria, which, by the way, are laid down in the Treaty of the European Union, and of course, they've also been agreed at the highest level by the EU leaders. So, of course, the principle is that countries that are ready to join because they meet their conditions, then of course they can join. Now you know that there's been renewed debates also in the Council on these important issues on enlargement, and I think that Commissioner has obviously expressed his opinion. I think he's also made clear that we need to redouble efforts on both sides, the European Union side and of course the candidate countries, and the Commission is ready of course to support in this debate going forward. So I think I'd leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Anna. Any other questions? I don't see any, so unless you have other questions for us today. Yes. David.
Yes, it's on sport.
On sports.
Yeah.
We are getting in the mood. Okay, thank you, Anna.
Yeah.
Please.
Yes, the Belgian club Union Saint-Gilloise, according to a Guardian report, was blocked from enter the European Club Association, which is the main association of football club and the only one recognized by UEFA. The reason is that Union Saint-Gilloise was part of another association, the Union of European Clubs, which represents small club, and they want more voice in the football ecosystem, maybe more money from UEFA and so on. And this is the reason given by the European Club Association. I'm wondering if this is in line with the European rules, freedom of association and so on, and if it's in line with the European model of sport, which is promoted by you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. A very specific question. I wonder if Sonia has an answer.
Many thanks, David. We are aware of this case from the press, but we don't have the specifics, so I cannot pronounce myself specifically. But what I can tell you of relevance for these aspects of the case is that, of course, as you have mentioned, we defend the European model of sports. And one of the features of this model is the autonomy and the independence of the sporting associations. So sport associations and also federations play a central role when implementing this model of sport. And of course, their autonomy and independence is crucial. So they're a key pillar of the European sport model and enjoy a degree of autonomy, how sport is governed. So the autonomy and the self-regulation of those associations and federations has a precondition, which is the good governance. And this good governance, how they are organized and how they govern themselves, has to be based on defined, transparent, and non-discriminatory rules, also in compliance with EU legislation, including competition rules.
Thank you very much, Sonia. I don't see any other questions for us today, so I will conclude this meeting, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow at midday. Thank you very much for your discussions, and stay well.